Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning to you all here in the room. Many of us have been hearing about long-acting agents or long-acting technologies for a long time. Some of us have been involved also in the process of trials to make sure that the product is safe and it's available to the patients that you all care for. Some of us have also been involved in the policy-making process at the national level to make sure that there is a pathway supported by national policies to integrate these products in our national setting in the months, I would say, not years, in the months to come. So what I'm going to do today is to provide you an overview of this long-acting medicines in our region, and at the same time also share what all needs to happen if we are going to make these products available for our use and also for the people that will benefit the most out of this. And as Professor Land had noted while he was with us, nothing is impossible, especially if it's inevitable. And it's inevitable that we get this product to the people that needs this product to protect themselves from HIV or to live a longer and a meaningful life with HIV. It's almost now 4 decades since we had our first antiretroviral, azitabudin. And in some of the videos that were running prior to this session, we were talking about the cost of this medicine and also the availability of this in different parts of the world. And we couldn't get it. One of the primary reasons, as Dr. Prafan in the video was noting, was the cost of this. It was extremely expensive, and we couldn't get it. But with the evolution of the generics, we have come a long way now. From the first fixed-dose combination in 2001, which completely revolutionized the availability and treatment of people living with HIV globally, to what we call now as a preferred first line at approximately $34 per person per year, have drastically been able to save many of the people living with HIV, to make sure that they're not getting opportunistic infection, and they're staying protected. At the same time, others being protected because of the viral load being remaining undetectable. So these are scientifically proven records that we have, and at the same time, generics have contributed largely to this, and we have moved a long way over the past 2 decades on availability of antiretroviral. With medications came also the policies. So we had our first announcement of $1 a day from CIPLA in 2001, and then along with that came the first guidelines from the World Health Organization for HIV treatment. Many things have changed after this, but this was how medications and policies went along to responding to the HIV epidemic. With those evolving medications came the changes in the policies from WHO in terms of their recommendations, and at the national level when we started applying those recommendations at the context and what is adaptable for us at different scale and different period of time, from a CD4 of 200 to treat all in 2019. So that took time, that took policies to come up, and that went along with the availability of these generic medications. Then now we have this long-acting antiretrovirals. And we have seen now with the products that are available that are already in the market, we have now WHO coming up with policies that we could look at, and we could look at our national context and see what we could adapt for our use and for our patients. 2 important drugs at this point that we have is cabotegravir, as we have heard from Dr. Iskander, also in lenacapavir. I'm going to take through a little bit more in detail on these 2 products at this point. Cabotegravir and lenacapavir, both of them have what we call as a voluntary license, which is in between either the originator company and generic companies or through the medicines patent pool. In the case of cabotegravir in 2002, the medicine, Viv Healthcare, which is the innovator company of cabotegravir, has signed a voluntary license, with Medicines Patent Pool, who in turn have provided sub-license to 3 companies. All of them are Indian generic companies. In 2004, Gilead signed not sub-license, it's a direct bilateral license with 6 companies, 4 from India and 2 not from India, 1 from Pakistan and 1 from Egypt. And all of these companies have a history of either manufacturing or marketing Gilead products. So they have a history. And they are now in that process of taking the products forward. Cabotegravir is now already approved in different countries in our region: China, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Taiwan, Thailand. And also, Cambodia is using this as a part of a national program which is funded by the Global Fund. And by October, I think they have already enrolled more than 325 people on long-acting cabotegravir, most of whom are from the population of men who have sex with men. And that's the only national program which is supported by Global Fund that we have at this point in the region using long-acting cabotegravir. What is notable here is cabotegravir national approval was facilitated by what we call as the ASEAN Joint Assessment Process. So this is where the national regulatory authorities came together to discuss how the data and how these products could be approved in the countries. So national regulatory authorities could volunteer to be a part of this process. And 5 national agencies participated in this process, with the Philippines FDA leading the process. At this point, the other countries which are listed here, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, and Thailand, have approved this product based on this joint assessment. Vietnam is still to approve this. And I would reflect on this in the next slides to come. What is important here is it took them almost a year to complete this process. And perhaps this may be something which we could discuss and relook at appropriate avenues. This was a very long period of time. And why is this a long period of time? I'll come to that in this subsequent slides. Cabotegravir now, outside of what is available in Cambodia as a part of a national program, is available in our private markets. VIV Healthcare has developed its own access strategy, and that's applicable for low-income, least developed, and in sub-Saharan Africa. And they have been reducing the price of this product with conditions, of course, in these countries, and the Cambodian purchasers are using this rates. Of course, there's going to be slight variation based on this, but starting from 2023 onwards, the price of cabotegravir from VIV Healthcare as a part of this access has also been dropping. In the private market here in Thailand and also in Malaysia, I'm not aware of what's there in Philippines, but that could be something that we could share in tomorrow's session that we have. It's extremely expensive, and it can, with the loading dose of 7 injections in a 12 months period, including the loading dose, it can cost more than $3,000 for anybody to be privately to be on lenacapavir to protect themselves from HIV. And this is indeed a very high cost if we keep in mind the cost of the oral drugs that we have at this point. Lenacapavir is another that we are very much talking about at this point. We have, as I mentioned, in October, things have gone really, really fast for lenacapavir. In October 2024, there was a bilateral voluntary license with those 6 companies that I've mentioned. Upper middle-income countries in the region, like Malaysia, is excluded from this license. In July 2005, Global Fund signed an agreement with Gilead Sciences where they've said that over the next 3 years, they will provide lenacapavir to 2 million people. with identified 9 countries as early adopters of this. And none of the 9 countries were from Asia Pacific. In September, again, the US government, as you might have heard, announced what they call as a market shaping strategy, that the US government will support the Global Fund to make sure that other countries are added to this. And Philippines was one of the countries that was added as a part of this US government initiative. As a part of expanding the availability of this medication, Gilead had identified 18 countries for regulatory process. And of those 18, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam were in this. Identified within the region. But I think till now, they have not initiated the filing of the regulatory process as we understand. In November already, so from that time of signing the license till the Global Fund processes, Zambia and Zimbabwe completed the national registration process in 12 days, and Zambia in 12 days, and Zimbabwe in 18 days. So if we reflect back our ASEAN regulatory process of 1 year on cabotegravir, if you use the WHO pre-qualification process with Zambia and Zimbabwe, that you could do it in less than half a month. And countries in our region, including Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Laos, had extensively used the WHO collaborative process to get HIV and other non-HIV medicines in our as either part of a national programs or for our own national responses. Philippines have used it 42 times across multiple medications. Thailand have used it at least 18 times, starting from 2018 with sofosbuvir, the first medication to use this WHO pre-qualification process. Malaysia have used it once, Laos have used it once for vaccines, not for HIV medication, but other vaccines that were available. So this is where the national authorities and national programs have to decide on which is the best process, whether it's the ASEAN, whether it's the WHO SRA pathway, whether it's the WHO pre-qualification pathway, which one is the best for us to access or make this registered in our countries as early as possible. By this December 2025, Eswatini and Zambia had already started receiving lenacapavir for their national programs. So this is how lenacapavir uptake has really gone fast, but not in the Asia Pacific. We also have been hearing about generic lenacapavir at this point. The generic companies, or 6 companies, have been working on this very fast. They have committed a price of $40 per person per year. And that would be the price of generic lenacapavir for the 2 doses that people would take. In the first month, because there would be 4 tablets that would be in the first year, not in the first month, that would cost approximately $55. That's an approximation cost. The $15 additional outside of that $40 is for the 4 tablets that a person has to take along with the first 2 injections. There also have been collaborations to ensure a fast market entry. Along with the Gates Foundation, with CHAI, Unidate, and also RHI, with RHI. So there has been collaborations that the generic have developed so far, which is allowing them to commit to that price of $40 per person per year. They also have submitted registration to the Indian Drug Regulator, which is called SCDSCO, in short. And also there is a bioequivalency study that is ongoing on the oral 300 milligram lenacapavir tablet at this point of time. As a part of the application process, the generics have asked for a waiver of the local clinical trial because of the data that is already available across multiple sites and the value that those data bring, and to make sure that these generic products which are licensed are entering the market in low and middle income countries and licensed territory as early as possible. The Indian Drug Regulator discussed this this application from the generic company on the 15th of October, which is pretty recent, but they did not agree to grant a clinical trial local waiver, which is because there were no Indian subset to prove that there is no substantial ethnic variability on the clinical data or from the clinical data. And also, there were no Indian ethnic participants in the trials. And that means that there is a lack of sufficient efficacy and safety data on Indian population. So they have decided not to waive the local clinical trial. What this means is that this is going to substantially delay the entry of generic lenacapavir. But we're hoping that the generic product with other process that is ongoing at this point, including the BE, would enter the Indian market at least and available for exports and other regulatory process as early as possible within the next 4 to 6 months. What we need at this point is support from different groups, and we have been approaching many of you in this room and also outside, civil society, treatment access groups, treatment advocates, people living with HIV groups, to request the Indian regulatory body to accept a level of data which is allowed within the Indian legal and regulatory framework. And those things are ongoing. Some of the things that Dr. Skandar also mentioned about things really that is in the horizon that I'm going to talk about. One is MK8527, once a month oral PrEP for HIV prevention. Phase 3 is ongoing. Malaysia, some of you are in this room, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam are all included as sites. What lessons can we learn from this generic lenacapavir? In your CRF, is there something which is of race? Is it noted only as Asian? Is there something that you could, without changing the overall protocol, you could do to make sure that there is a record that you note in terms of citing people with Indian ethnicity? Malaysia would have fairly a large amount of people with Indian ethnicity. Some in Thailand, for example, fairly less in Vietnam, maybe some in Philippines. But if we prepare for that from now, when Merck is going to absolutely go for an access strategy at some point of time. They have done that in the past, and they would do it for MK8527. If the Indian generics, if the Indian drug regulator have said that they would need Indian ethnicity-related data, if we prepare from now, if you talk to your sponsor and discuss among everyone, would that help us in terms of preparing for faster generic entry? And knowing that it's not an injectable form, it's an oral product. So it's a much more easier regulatory process. Would that be something that can proactively prepare for a faster regulatory uptake in the days to come? And others for treatment, again, similar, like Dr. Skandar has mentioned, once a week. Oral Island 1 and Island 2 is ongoing at this point. Again, multiple sites in the region in Australia, Japan, Taiwan, and also in Thailand. Similar question for people who are involved in this. If we have people with Indian ethnicity, what is it that we can learn from this and record from now onwards, talking to the sponsor, talking among the investigators to make sure that we are prepared for this? We don't have 31% of people living with HIV, despite all the 95, 95, 95 and all of these targets. And with the challenges that we have, 31% of people living with HIV in Asia Pacific do not have access to treatment. And we have had this treat all policy from 2019 onwards, and 31% gap is still there. Can some of these medicines that we have in the pipeline now fill this 31% gap? That's what we have to prepare from now, and how, as researchers, as civil society groups, physicians, community advocates, can we contribute in this process? As a reflection on what I have shared in the past slides, there is an increasing availability of generic antiretrovirals, and the generics have been able to reshape the HIV response globally. For long-acting antiretrovirals, for long-acting medicines, global policies exist now, but we have to work on the national policies. I understand Philippines and Thailand are working on this, but we need to work on additional countries to make an impact. Asia Pacific is very much left behind, both on the policy front and access front. We have been left behind almost by the companies, innovator, but we really have to work on with the generic companies with the license if we are to get access to these products. We have a lot of lessons learned from the existing oral PrEP or from HIV treatment programs. We have to demedicalize, we have to decentralize, and we have to integrate. For that, we need to collaborate and we have to share experiences. Generic long-acting products will further transform the HIV response, just like how it has done for the entire HIV movement. And we have been able to access these long-acting products throughout the world. And as was Professor Land had noted, if we can get a Coca-Cola and beer to every remote corner of Africa, and also in Asia now, it should not be impossible to do the same thing with the medicines that we aim to have. Thank you very much.